SJW art is extraordinarily revealing if you understand what is being revealed. There's this YouTube channel I follow called Diversity in Comics. And this guy is a veteran who reviews comic books. He reviews comic books like 2-3 episodes per day. It's a little bit too much for me to keep on top of it every day, but I enjoy his commentary. And see, this guy is a total anti-SJW guy, right? And he is just constantly amazed by the SJW crap that is in modern day comic books. He's tearing his hair out, as it were. Complaining about it on and on and on. And what's interesting are his complaints and the thing about SJW characters. And I'll give you a brief synopsis of what he says. What bothers him is that there's just so much talking about feelings in these SJW comic books. They talk on and on and on about their feelings, but there's very little action. Oddly enough, you know, he was mentioning the She-Hulk. I could care less about that crap. I don't follow comic books, but he talks about She-Hulk, and how, you know, the run goes like 7 episodes, 7 books before the character turns into the Hulk. You know, when I was a boy, when I was 6 or 7 or something like that, I used to watch the TV show The Incredible Hulk, and well, you know, the Incredible Hulk would turn into the Incredible Hulk, you know, 2, 3, 4 times per episode, you know, every week when I watched it. And I was thinking to myself, you know, these comic books come out, I don't know if they come out once a month or once a week. I have no idea. Let's just say once a week. So for like 7, 8 weeks, you know, the main character has not become the superhero that is its title. She hasn't turned into a Hulk. I don't have a problem with the Hulk now being a woman. Kind of interesting, actually. But it's the fact that, you know, the Hulk doesn't do shit, right? They just talk, yeah? But, you know, I mean, I don't really care. I don't really follow popular entertainment. I'm more of a nonfiction kind of guy. But I follow Diversity in Comics in a way because it's interesting to keep on top of that. I like the way he does his episodes. And I think there's a lot to be learned from his channel. And specifically about SJW mentality. Because SJW art is extraordinarily revealing if you understand what is being revealed. Okay? Now, you see, Diversity in Comics, we'll just take him, right? He talks about these SJW characters, that there's no action, there's all this talking about feelings and crap, right? And he says how, you know, the characters, they don't have real difficulties. They don't have real difficulties, and they always get over these fairly easy difficulties. And he says how a lot of the comic book tropes are not fulfilled, as it were. Because he mentions one, for instance, you know, usually a superhero has a first enemy, and that enemy is relatively easy to dispatch, as it were. But then the first enemy, the first villain, as it were, turns out to be just like sort of like the advanced scout for the second villain, and the second villain is the major villain, and often is not. The superhero fails with this second major villain, and the superhero has to pick himself back up and get over this adversity, and finally, at great cost and sacrifice, defeat the second villain, the real villain, the major villain, as it were. And a lot of times these personal costs are tremendous. The death of close friends and other characters in the comic books and what have you. And sure, you start to realize that a lot of the tropes of classic literature are repeated in comic books. And sometimes apparently very, very well, at least from what Diversity in Comics says. And I believe him, you know, why wouldn't I? So that's interesting, but how come that doesn't happen with SJW art? Because you see, Diversity in Comics is just SJW in the comic book industry, but you look at the other arts, you know, across the board, and they have this SJW nonsense. For instance, in movies, we recently had the Ghostbusters movie with the 4 leads replaced by women, and the film was universally panned. I mean, nobody liked it, and the few people who pretended to like it clearly had a political agenda. They wanted to push the fact that there were 4 women in the roles that had originally been for men, right? In literature, we see I mean, in fact, the matter is, serious literature over the last 30, 40 years has been completely SJW. Because when you go to a bookstore and you buy a book, you look at all the books, the titles, James Patterson, Stephen King, what have you, you see there are basically two kinds of books. There are the genre books, Stephen Patterson, Brad Thor, Stephen King, you know, all those, James Patterson rather. And then there's the quote-unquote serious literature that doesn't sell many copies. It doesn't sell many copies because the characters are SJW characters. That's why serious literature has been in frank decline, because you see, serious literature, the people who are in charge of picking serious literature, they are all people who were trained with the SJW narrative. Now, why would this matter? I mean, what's the whole point of SJW characters in novels, for instance, in movies, in comic books? What is it? Well, it's not just diversity, you see. It's something that diversity in comics picked up, but perhaps he didn't, you know, expand on it as much as I'll try to here. You see, SJW characters have this habit of not really having great difficulties before them. They are minorities, blacks, Latinos, women, transsexuals or homosexuals, and they have two kinds of difficulties. Either they have impossible to resolve difficulties, such as, for instance, AIDS. The novel The Hours by this man Cunningham, Michael Cunningham. That novel is a typical SJW novel. You see, all of the characters are self-centered. All of the characters talk about themselves incessantly, their own internal problems, but the minutiae, the trivial shit, which diversity in comics picks up in the comic books. The She-Hulk, for instance, where it goes 7 episodes and all they do is talk about their internal problems, but nothing real, not about the enemy and the villain, and there's no transformation into the Hulk. The same thing happened in novels. That's why serious literature has gone down the toilet. See? There hasn't been a decent, serious novel that has been published in decades. Note that I say published, not written. There are writers who are trying to write serious novels that talk about human problems, but they're just not being published. Certainly not by the major presses, you see. Because the people charged with choosing the novels, they've all been trained in this SJW bullshit. And so the market for serious novels has shrunk over the years because nobody wants to read this shit. Because these characters, you see, they're all very diverse and all the rest of it, but they are focused on themselves, on their minutiae. The problems that they have are either self-created or they are easily overcome. There are no sacrifices. Nothing happens. There is no cost to their actions. They are always in the right, and nobody ever says that they are wrong, and nobody puts any obstacle in their way. So their victories, often as not, are over their own emotions, as opposed to some actual obstacle out in the wider world. Nobody disputes them, no other character disputes them, and they own the truth, which is, I think, the worst part of it. You see, because look at Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky wrote great novels, no question. Some of the best parts of his novels were arguments between characters. For instance, the episode of the Grand Inquisitor in The Brothers Karamazov. That episode, that sequence, one of the great landmarks of Western literature, is essentially a story argument discussion between two of the Brothers Karamazov. They talk about and describe the character of the Grand Inquisitor, and it's a landmark. And it's an argument. An argument is going on. But you see, in SJW land, there is no argument. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's happy. Everybody's diverse. And whatever problems happen are internal problems based on minutiae, based on trivialities. Oh, I feel depressed. I don't know why I feel depressed. Oh, but maybe if I get a latte, I'll feel better. And if I put soy milk, maybe I shouldn't. Bullshit. Bullshit. The art that is being manufactured by SJWs or with an SJW slant does not touch people, does not touch emotions, does not touch the reality of the human experience. And the reality of the human experience is that good does not triumph over evil. On the contrary, good usually loses, and loses rather badly. And life is difficult, and there's a great deal of suffering, and a lot of that suffering is unjust. But you see, the people who are creating this SJW art shield their characters from these issues. They treat them, as Diversity in Comics says, they treat them like puppies. Oh, good doggy. Tap, 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 tap on the head. Yeah, scratch him behind the ear. Good puppy. Good little black person. Good little gay person or Latino person or transsexual person. Good, good, good puppy. Because ultimately, the people who create SJW art don't respect minorities. That's the dirty little secret. Why do you think SJWs, why do you think leftists go on and on and on about, disrespecting minorities and racism against minorities and so on and so forth? Because it is projection. You see? Because we who are anti-SJW, we who are on the right of the political spectrum, we who look at people as they are, as individuals, we don't give a shit what group they come from. We just take people as they come. They could come from fucking Mars and we could care less. But you see, we take them as they come, but the leftists, the SJWs, take them as members of a group and they look down on those groups. That's why they go on and on about racism, because they are the racists. That's what's going on. That's why SJW art is so patronizing and so trivial. Because they don't trust the characters because they are racist. They look down on the white, on the black characters, on the Latino characters, the trans, the gays, all of them. They look down on them. And notice only the interesting problems, the interesting dramatic problems, the problems that come at a cost insofar as SJW art, it's only afflicted to the white people. Never the minorities. The minorities, good puppy, good, good, good puppy. Despicable, isn't it? But that's the left for you. That's the social justice warrior for you. That is identity politics.